Greetings, greetings. My name is Irmina. My sacred name is Queen Tuya. I use it both as a pen name and a sacred name, and I help highly spiritual, highly creative, and innovative, sensitive people rediscover who and what they are and the mission or purpose for them being on this planet at this time. In essence, I help people reintegrate with their souls. Now, the people I support tend to not only have these hyper type of behaviors, but along with that comes with this wellness need of self-care because they tend to put themselves last because there's a very strong desire for service and for supporting the world that they tend to put themselves last. The other thing is there's a need for spiritual sovereignty. This need is I need to search freely and at my own pace. I call this group sensitive free spirits because we're kind of like monks, nuns, mumbles, and priests and priestesses, whatever, living everyday lives. We're not necessarily always doing this as a ministry, but we're living everyday lives. And we need to walk this earth with this really deep connection with the spiritual realm and still take care of ourselves. I started Clearwater Wellness Life back in 2013 after a major life experience. And I've had multiple of those, but this one was the bigger one. I was literally pulled by the ear by Babalao and saying to me, you need to start your spiritual and wellness uh, organization now. You should have started a long time ago. You do it now. And you need to support, a certain type of people, and mostly it's people that are overthinking, overdoing, constantly seeking approval from others, or really struggling to take care of themselves. And to be able to come to a place where they no longer need external validation, even though they see this as being a form of self-sacrifice and service, that's very hard for them to let go of. And to be able to realign with their true soul's mission and path and be more authentic as they walk through this plane with a little bit more joy and a whole lot less suffering. So in this virtual temple that I've created, you're going to find a combinations of decades of experience, including gentle teachings, reflections, rituals, and a lot of different types of tools that you can either just download or take with you and then come back when you're ready. And everything is here to help you remember who you are and to reclaim your way forward at your own pace. And because this space is made for people who carry a lot, I made a conscious effort to keep it as light as possible, although there's a lot of information, but it isn't, you don't have to take it all at once. We move at nature's pace, where we don't move at man-made time. So we need more reflection time. We need time to close our eyes and integrate. In addition, I support everyone, and especially people who are Africans in the diaspora, people who have been displaced, or people who are on underserved communities. We don't rush. We don't rush to answers. We really can't. We don't work well that way. Instead, we use deep insights, experiential practices, rituals, and wisdom, and everyday rituals to slow down, ground ourselves, reconnect with what's really going on, and take care of ourselves from the inside out, not just from the outside, because we do need information from the outside as well. So if you're constantly going in circles, repeating the same mistakes over and over and over again, you are welcome here. If you find yourself reinventing the same thing and in a constant state of transformation, by the way, that is normal for many people. Or if you feel stuck or you're moving too fast, you're in the right place. We have tools that can help you choose how to move forward when you're ready. I'm not going to be the one telling you you have no flaws. That wouldn't be true. We are on this plane to evolve and alter ourselves before we shed this temple and move on. So there are things that we need to upgrade in alter and change and transform. But what I can tell you that all of that is part of who you are. It's how you find your way back home to your own heart. A little bit about my story. I grew up in a Catholic Haitian household. My family walked the dual path of Christian voodooism. So half of my family was Christian, the other half was Christian voodooism, very mixed. And the Catholics that I grew up was constantly demonizing the indigenous culture of African descendants or Haitians and the diaspora or Haitians. So I grew up with a lot of conflict. I couldn't understand why there was such a issue. And I grew up doing the rituals, the ceremonies, and being really deeply embedded in those practices. And what I saw was nature and love and community, and I couldn't understand why this was not okay with other people. So there was a deep inner conflict for many, many, many decades. What's even more confused was that some of the people who were showing me a face of mercy from the Catholic schools and the doctor's office and all that, they were showing me a cruelty that I couldn't understand. I couldn't make sense of how can you be so cruel, but yet you're saying we're the ones that are the issues. Fortunately, I was lucky enough to have a mother that was deeply into the rituals and ceremony and took me with her for many years to a lot of this stuff. And I'm certain those form the foundation of my backbone today. And I'm able to integrate a whole lot of different aspects of myself because of those early walks. By the time I was 14 years old, people were coming to me for clarity. I learned how to read cards at 14, so I was really good at just giving some insights early on. And I took a lot of pride and deep satisfaction for being able to be this sort of go-to person for people who wanted support. Now, here's the thing. I did this at a very young age, and I kept on doing it. Uh, but when it came time to take care of myself, I felt like I was an outcast. There was no one else I could go to. So I would go to my personal meeting with God, I would call it, and the God of my understanding at the time. But I rarely felt I could be heard from external places, and I always felt foggy. And by the time I was in my 30s, I was feeling exhausted, confused, and would repeat the same mistakes over and again. And usually felt like I was being pulled in too many directions to be stabilized. So I searched a lot. I studied a lot, both experiential and, of course, through books. And all those studies taught me one thing, that all of these different religions have a truth in them. And the ones that they were saying were demonic and bad, it was more of a um, cultural and race issue rather than actual practice that was being demonized. So, as someone who has always been multi-talented, and I'm sure you guys can relate to this, I could take on many, many different roles, and I did. So, I was taking care of family, I was going to school, I was taking care of elders, I was volunteering, taking care of students. I was doing all the different things that I felt was going to support me as a young person. But I didn't realize that through this constant giving, I wasn't always replenishing and I was depleting myself. And I rarely stopped to check on myself the right way. I know how to refill my own well, but I wasn't simmering myself in it. Don't get me wrong, I experienced a lot of amazing healings and pilgrimages and monastery and rituals and church services, shamanic healing sessions. You name it, I experienced them. And I also studied a lot, including even diving into more occult practices later so that I could really understand what was going on. Um, and all of that gave me information to help me accept myself. It all came crashing a Sunday afternoon in my perfectly calm and peaceful apartment. There was like, I could remember the beam of light was streaming through the window, and I just began to cry uncontrollably. I remember thinking to myself, and later writing in my journal, I feel like I was missing this unity I felt with God. but more than just unity over the course of decades while building external stuff and building my external soul, my human soul, because I lost track of my union with divine creation. And I also could no longer deny who and what I really was made of, meaning my ancestral codes. I needed to connect with those. And this took me to, on a deeper level, into Ifa, initiation, voodoo reconnections, and like I mentioned earlier, Wicca, and also some occult studies. I became one of those people that was like, oh my God, this, and that, and all this makes sense. Why did people not tell me this before? And I learned a lot, and I'm grateful for it. But in the end, I realized I was just, in the end, I realized I was just looking for me. The Babalawan in Ifa once said, "You're not lost. You just need to decide what path you want to follow and stay on the course." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So the Haitian voodoo path, the Ifa path, the Wicca path, the occult path, the modern spiritual path, etc., none of them seem to integrate all of what I needed. None of them felt like home. And I have enough of them to feel like I was gaining something. Now, instinct, intuition, insights for or different aspects that you can find in all of those. And I find that if I focus on that, instinct, intuition, insight, I will eventually find the path of enlightenment, which turns out to be the path of enlightenment. And I could do a whole video on this, and maybe I will. But the key codes to understand is instinct is guttural, insight is more mental, although it's flashes, so it's not all just the external mind, it's also etheric. Um, Insight is the connection between the two and the alignment of the two. And then alignment is alignment of all of it. And, it's the enlightenment, it's the middle path. It's not the path of severity, it's not the path of mercy where you're harsh on yourself, where you're so beautifully loving and peaceful and everything is perfect. It is the ability to look at the whole shebang, control. Uh, since that experience, I have returned to a more whole self. I'm no longer feeling alone without the divine. As a matter of fact, as I'm speaking to you now, I feel deeply connected and supported. And I'm no longer looking for others to approve of my path or my way. I no longer feel bound by the cross of severity and the cross of mercy. And instead, I'm pausing more. I am moving uh, through deep listening. I move with nature, uh, more self discipline, more self control, and returning to a more simpler and much slower life. And most importantly, everything comes from here out. And the information I get from out in, I reflect on how that is aligned with my sacred cosmic orders, which is what I call parts of my mission and why I'm here before I take a step. What I learned is our sensitivity, spirituality, authenticity. That was never the problem. It's how we learn to perceive and deny ourselves for having those things. That was the challenge. So this was my path. This was a path of integration, a path of balance, a path of authenticity, and a path of acceptance. I want to invite you to really consider whether or not this challenge that you've been concerned about has all along been a challenge of simple self-acceptance. If anything I said spoke to you, you don't have to explain it. You don't have to write anything at the bottom or anything like that. I want you to sit with it and reflect. I want you to contemplate whether you want to walk with us on this journey. If we can help you and help you realign. And if that the answer is yes, then take the next step. Download either the handout. If you're brand new to us, you can download the handout which offers ritual support for those of us who tend to overgive. That's the first place to start, is to learn how to carve out time for yourself. Then you can visit the rooms of our temple and other places we have online and virtual that can support you. The last thing that I invite everyone to do is to also consider filling out the application for our social, so we can um, invite you into that inner circle. And the socials are by invitations only. You have to fill out the application. Once we have enough people, I will be meeting again. We did stop meeting for a few years while I was in school. So now that I'm done, we will start meeting again, and I look forward to supporting you in that way. So thank you for listening to this video, and if you have any questions, do not hesitate to reach out. I look forward to seeing you again soon.